All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Dion's Daily Dose. Tonight, we have a special guest. It is Julianne Havens. She's running for LaPorte County Circuit Court Judge, which is, as you know, an extremely important position. She, along with several other compatriots, are running in the Republican primary to replace Tom Alavizos, who is retiring. We're sorry to see him go, but we are glad that we have a nice slate of candidates to choose from. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Julianne onto the show here and let her introduce herself.
Good evening. How are you?
Hi, I am fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it, and my viewers appreciate it.
Sure.
So if you could just basically tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are running for judge.
Okay. As you know, I'm Julianne Havens. I'm currently a deputy prosecuting attorney in circuit court, handling major felonies. I've been an attorney for 33 years, and of those 33, 28 of them I've been prosecuting crimes. 16 of those years I've been here in LaPorte County. 4 years I was in St. Joseph County, where I was also a sex crimes unit supervisor. And then 8 years I was in Stark County, where 6 of those years I was the elected prosecuting attorney. Why I want to be a judge, it's kind of a career path as I see it. Over those 3 decades of being an attorney, I kind of developed and honed my skills and my knowledge in the courtroom. How I treated cases, how I discussed cases with various individuals, I would end up having colleagues or coworkers coming to me saying, you'd make a great judge. And so they planted that seed, really. And so as I continued in my career, it became a path that I was on. And I just think at this point in time in my career, I want to continue with my experience and my fairness that I feel I have, and be able to share that and contribute in my legal profession to the courtroom, maintaining a respected courtroom.
Okay, awesome. So what are the things that you would like to see as far as LaPorte County? First of all, the circuit court, for those who don't know, that court handles what cases? Felony cases, misdemeanor cases?
It handles all the felony cases, and from the lowest level, which are considered level 6 felonies, and then they handle the major felonies. They do what I'll call minor felonies. Those are on Wednesdays. The major felonies are on Friday mornings, and that's everything from level 5 felonies up to murder. It also handles a variety of civil cases. It could be anything from a medical malpractice to a products liability or something like that. Contract law. It has a variety of things that could be filed in circuit court. The family law stuff typically is handled by one of its magistrates. That's Magistrate Pamela Muncie. And then, of course, the juvenile stuff, which the circuit court also oversees, that is handled by Magistrate Stallworth. So those 2 magistrates, the circuit court oversees, but for the most part, the magistrates handle those issues.
Okay, so there's a lot that the circuit court handles, like you said, the entire range of felonies. It's kind of weird though. Like level 6, you think of it as worse, but level 1 is the worst, right? Like you said,
it's just below murder. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, level 1, and then it goes down to level
Correct.
6, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So why LaPorte County? You've been in Stark County, you've been in St. Joe County.
Right. Well, when I was in law school, I ended up being an intern in a law practice here in LaPorte. Okay. Because when I was in law school, I lived with my parents, saved some money,
Okay,
so
absolutely.
I lived with them. I went to Valparaiso Law School, so I lived with my parents, drove to school, and stayed with them. So half an hour away was LaPorte, and I grew up in Stark County, but the thing is, I was always coming to LaPorte. My dad was from LaPorte. I had aunts and uncles in LaPorte, things like that. Okay. So I was always in LaPorte. And so I ended up interning for a law firm here. After law school, they weren't going to be able to afford me necessarily at that time. So I went to Fort Wayne for 1 year. I actually worked for a judge for 1 year. It was a 1 year contract. Learned a lot from that person. And then I ended up coming back to LaPorte, and that's when I ended up starting my career in the prosecutor's office as well. So I graduated in 1991. By 1992, I'm in the prosecutor's office working and doing civil practice work as well, because at that time I was part-time deputy prosecutor. And then when Cindy Hedge became prosecutor, I believe I might have been the very first full-time deputy prosecutor she asked if I wanted to take that on. And I said yes, because I just felt that's kind of where my heart was at. I was really working and paying a lot of attention to my cases. And so I took that on. And so I started there. I was 6 years then in the prosecutor's office. There was a change, obviously, in the prosecutor. And at that point in time, I think we had just a little bit of different philosophies, and that was okay. And so I looked to St. Joe County, and they hired me on because, interestingly enough, I had done a rape trial with a defense attorney in St. Joe County who came down here. And he was impressed by, I guess, how I did the trial. And he immediately said, I want you on my staff in St. Joe County. So I worked there for 4 years, and they asked me to oversee the sex crimes unit. And then from there, I wanted to slow things down because at that point I was going to be starting a family. And I had just right before that had bought a home in Stark County, because that's, again, where I grew up. So went down there. After 2 years, then Prosecutor Hall became judge. And he came to me and said, you need to put your name in. And I said, for what? And he said, for prosecutor, because I thought the chief deputy would just take over. And he said, no, they'll do a caucus. And I said, oh, okay. So I put my name in. He obviously felt I had the skill and the knowledge and professionalism to take that on. And sure enough, they caucused me in. And then after that, the election came, and I was elected prosecutor as well. So that's why it was a 6-year term as prosecutor. And then after that, the election changed again. You know how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes. So my husband had already been working up in Michigan City all this time. And I said, well, I'm going to have an office up in LaPorte. That's silly for us to drive. Let's go move to LaPorte. So that's where we came back to. So we've been here since, I want to say, well, my son was in 5th grade by that point when we came back up here. And he's now 22 years old. So
okay, so you've been in LaPorte County for a while.
Yes, a while.
Okay. So, like, what do you like? Obviously, people can look on your website, which, by the way, if people want to learn more about you, where should they go?
My website is julianneforjudge.com.
Okay. That's simple, easy. I like it. Okay. So if they want to learn more about I guess your experience and everything, they can go on your website, but I'm interested in the person that, because a lot of times we don't get a chance to really get one-on-one time with the people that are on the ballot.
Sure.
What do you like to do for fun? What?
Oh my. Well, I love the outdoors. I mean, when we look to vacation, we look to go west. We like the mountains. We like to, I like to go whitewater rafting. We've done that quite a bit. We love to hike, and explore nature and things like that. So that's the one thing. If I'm just here at home and, need to go try to get out, I love to take my dog out. I have a German Shepherd. I've always had dogs. I've grown up with dogs. So, that's the one thing that's kind of fun to do because, they just love you no matter what's going on in your life. So I always have that enjoyment as well. So spending time with family and friends, that always helps to bring a smile to my face as well.
Well, that answers my dog or cat person question. Yeah. So,
well, I had cats growing up, but they were always out in the barn, So,
okay. There's nothing wrong with barn cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a really good friend who has quite a collection of cats out in the barn, and they're so nice. But dogs really do love you unconditionally, and they're always there for you. And dogs are special.
Correct. I agree.
So how many children do you have?
I have two. One
You
is
have two. Okay.
in his fourth year in college at
Oh, wow.
Manchester, and the other one is a senior at LaPorte High School. But I think my oldest one's going to end up taking a fifth year because he graduated during COVID, and so he runs cross country and track, and he really, really enjoys that, and so he wants to take a fifth year so he can continue to run. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. COVID just really, I mean, it really messed a lot of things up for especially people who were in school, particularly high school or middle school at the time. It just like messed everything up for those kids. I genuinely feel bad for my kids too that were in school at the time. And it's like, man, what do you do?
Yeah. But they're resilient. They bounce back. That's great.
They do. That's one thing I will say, that we don't give them enough credit for their resiliency and their adaptability. So
Correct. Right.
I will say that. Okay. So you mentioned that you worked in the sex crimes division.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Did that make you like really jaded as far as human behavior goes? Because like, oh my goodness.
Well, it's interesting because my upbringing, it was quite conservative, I would say.
Okay.
My parents, my mom especially, I had to always be modest about everything. I couldn't see an R-rated movie till I was 17. Everything was very, so it was like that. So I just find it very interesting that where I ended up, I've seen and I've heard everything. And that was just totally contrary to how I was raised, church every Sunday and things like that. Right. So it wasn't things that you would talk about. It's not anything that was mentioned, to be honest with you. So when I got to that point in my career, I'm going to trainings and hearing everything. And by the time I'm now doing the cases, I'm seeing everything and hearing everything as well, directly from the source. And but I wouldn't say it's jaded me. I think it's opened my eyes. I think it's real. It's happening out there, very unfortunately happening out there. And that's why I have a passion for it, because I've worked with kids when I was even in college. The summer job, I was a camp counselor. So so I worked with kids, got to know them. I had a good rapport with them. And so then by the time I get into my career, I could really associate with them and talk with them, feel comfortable. They came to trust me, it seems like. And so it was kind of a niche that I got into, maybe because nobody else wanted to do them. I'm not sure, but I've had great success with them. And that makes me very proud of what I've done in my career because of that.
Okay. I could see that. And I asked the jaded because I worked at Indiana State Prison for a number of years, and the average person, it's just my analysis, at least before I started working at the prison, the average person, I don't think realizes the depths of depravity that exist out there.
Right. So
I can see like what's the show on TV, Law and Order SVU.
Oh, right?
How normally with the realistic cutoff for programs like that, they generally move people around after like 2 years because it messes you up to deal with that, on a consistent basis.
And I don't know if that's just a gift that I've been given, that because I've seen people get burned out on them. And there's times when I feel that, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a type of case I end up getting, or maybe I do get a small break, take a vacation, and I come back. And I just try to think that, this is this person's case. This victim they need to be treated just as if it was the first case I ever had. And so, I need to treat that person and respect that person for what they're going through, and give them my full attention. And that's what I try to do each and every time.
Okay. All right. That's good. Ultimately, like I said, I don't think people realize the levels that exist out there until, they're in it. Obviously you get some of these, headline stories and whatnot, but, it's unfortunately more prevalent than a lot of people realize.
I mean, there's been times for sure that I have stepped off to a corner. I would get tearful, I
Yeah.
would, I'd get emotional about it, but I have to pull myself together, pull myself up by my bootstraps, so to speak, and realize that I'm the person right now that this person needs to fight for them and advocate for them, and that makes me stronger too, to be able to move forward with that case. So again,
Okay.
I don't know if it's a gift or just the patience that I have, whatever it is. I've seen it help me get through those cases.
Phenomenal. Okay, so I've received a few questions
Okay.
via email, but most of them, unfortunately, I believe you won't be able to answer just
Oh,
because of the particular rules.
sure,
And
sure.
that's, yeah, a lot of people need to understand that judges, judicial candidates in general, there's a very particular set of rules that you have to follow. And so like asking like how you'll rule on something
Oh,
or a particular,
right,
yeah, you're not allowed to answer that
right,
per the rules from the election board.
correct.
So unfortunately, yeah, there's some questions that I, I'm not even going to bother asking because all you're going to do is have to say, I can't
I can't
answer
answer
that.
that.
Right, right.
All right,
And
that's fine. That's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. So, but one of them, and if you want to answer this, it's up to you. So one person really likes the fact that you're female.
Oh,
They're really
okay.
excited about
Okay.
having another female judge. I think we only have one here in LaPorte County. I believe it's Judge Friedman.
No, there's
Um,
Jamie Oss. She's in Superior One.
yeah, I'm
Oh, there's
sorry,
two.
Jamie. I forgot. That's my
That's okay.
fault.
Yeah,
My apologies.
that's all right.
But they're really excited. Can you kind of tell us if that'll make a difference in how you're going to be as a judge, or if you think that it doesn't matter
Okay.
gender wise?
It's interesting because I was talking with a group just a couple days ago, and they asked me if they thought me being female would hinder my ability to win the election, or however they worded
Okay.
it. And I said, I never even gave it any thought, to be honest with you. And I think that's because, for a few reasons. Number one, I grew up with three older brothers. Okay.
Okay.
So I was the only girl, the youngest. So
Mhm.
I would see it as, hey, if they can do that, I can do that. And
Right.
if they're out playing basketball, I was out playing basketball. If they're up, baling hay, then I grabbed the hay hook and I grabbed a bale of hay and I pulled it into the hay loft. It just wasn't anything I ever considered that, oh, I'm a girl, I shouldn't do that.
Okay.
That never crossed my mind. And so then, as my life progressed, and for instance, being the first, I guess if I was elected, I would be the first female judge in circuit court. But I was
Okay.
also the first female prosecutor in Stark County. So I was the first full-time deputy prosecutor here in LaPorte, to my knowledge.
Okay.
So it's just as like I just go out there and I just do the job. I don't think of it as, oh, I'm a female. I need to be this. I need to be that. I just do the job. I don't question that. If I need to be tough on something, I'm going to be tough on something. If I need to, hey, I need to consider all the mitigators and aggravators. Well, that's just the job, and I don't look at it as male female, to be honest with you. And when I go into the courtroom in circuit court, oftentimes I'll look around and it'll just be me and the court reporter who are the only females in there.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a lot of male attorneys. That's all right. Like I said, I grew up with three older brothers. Their friends were around. I just always could relate to them. It never crosses my mind necessarily that, oh my gosh, I'm the only female here. No, you just do your job. What's
Okay.
right is right. It doesn't matter. So
Right. Right. Yeah. So did you just kind of going back to growing up with multiple older brothers,
mhm.
did you have like a rough and tumble kind of like wrestling and throwing each other around, or was it more of like a standoffish, let's protect the little sister kind of
Oh,
thing?
well, that's interesting. It's funny because the brother that's only 2 years older than me, that was close in age, he and I probably would fight more, but fight, I use that term very loosely, a slug in the arm or something like that.
Mhm.
And every now and then my other older two would be like, hey, don't do that. You shouldn't be mean like that. But No, I think they kind of saw that I could hold my own, especially in elementary, when the boys would come up and pull your hair if they liked you and stuff.
Right.
Well, I didn't like that, so I would just kind of take them down and then I move on.
Nice.
So it's just, so my brothers kind of saw like, oh, she can hold her own, and they really didn't need to come to my rescue. And then interestingly enough, when I was in New Orleans for my niece was graduating law school down there, and went down there, and we're walking down the street and I see a domestic violence happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually stepped in and yelled at the guy to stop. And he started coming at me. My brothers were kind of off to the side.
Yeah.
And they were watching what was happening, but they didn't come and step in front of me necessarily because they could see I was holding my own. And the guy, I was on the phone. I started to call 911. Basically, all he did was slap the phone out of my hand, but they were all kind of ready, but it's like I held my ground. And
okay.
Yeah, so I think they kind of know that, yeah, I know what I need to do in certain circumstances. So
yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I want people to kind of recognize and know I'm actually from Louisiana. I was born about 60 miles southwest of New Orleans.
Okay.
From a town called Homa. I moved away for a variety of reasons, but one of which is domestic is very, very common down there.
Right.
It's part of the culture, drinking, getting, not just drinking socially, but like alcoholism and domestic violence and things of that nature are truly a part of the culture down there. And I had to get away from it. Like it's really just, it's crazy.
Too prevalent.
Yeah. And they have an entirely different set of laws down there as well. They're under what's called Napoleonic law. And it's very, very different. They're making some changes now, but for many, many years, it was wild. Yeah. Look into it. It's actually pretty wild. But anyway, okay. So what changes would you like to make if elected?
Oh, well, the way I approach things, I don't want to just come in and say, hey, we're going to change everything. That's not my approach. My approach usually is, what have we got going on? What seems to be working? And if it's not working as well as what you would like, then what changes need to be made to make it better? I think you need to be honest about yourself with programs, because some are successful and some aren't. And it's okay. You just need to be honest about that, because otherwise, we just keep throwing good money after bad, to try to justify why we're doing this program. So I would rather just see what the programs are. Are they functioning well? And if not, why not? And what we can do to change that. I've collaborated before with various agencies to find out, what everybody can contribute. And it works well when everybody has an open and honest discussion about things. And so the one thing that I have noticed, I've had an opportunity to look at the Youth Wellness Court. It's a program I think that Judge Alavisos is very much into, is very fond of. But when I went to a few of those, I asked about it, how many kids are involved, and it's a very low number. And I think part of it might be because staffing wise, they have to, keep the number of staff equal to the number of kids involved. What I would love to see is, hey, can that be expanded? Whether it's getting another grant in order to get more staff to add more children, even if you doubled it, if there's only 10 kids in it now, can we make it 20? That might be it's a very good program. It's more of an intervention type program before things get out of hand. That's why I like the program. Let's catch the issues early on and try to deal with them before, I don't want the child to get lost in the system somehow. And whether their issues lie with at school or, the issues at home in their environment, whatever it is, it's a good program that I think is addressing those issues. So if we can reach more kids to prevent any further detriment, what an excellent program that would be. So that was one thing I would like to see expanded if possible. Otherwise, as far as changes, there's always going to be some changes because there's always room for improvement, no matter what. I always look at something as how can we improve it, even if it's just in something extremely small, whether it's the equipment you're using to a person, hey, you guys are overlapping your work, your responsibilities. Why are two people doing it when one can get something done? And I think that's one thing that I would like to explore as well. With all the various juvenile programs going on, are things overlapping? Are things being counterproductive because you're almost competing with one another? Where your goal might be the same, but everybody's fighting for, hey, we want this to happen with this child, and yet you've got another thing over here going on that's wanting the same thing. Right. So I think if we try to explore what programs may be overlapping and how that might better be utilized to not see that happening. Those are some ideas I have anyway.
Okay, so really streamlining what's there and an expansion, if possible, of, like you said, youth
wellness program.
Okay,
youth wellness court, I think, is the technical term for it.
Youth wellness court. So that's like an intervention process, kind of as they're first getting into the system and learning, hey, maybe this is something you want to fix.
What caused you to even start doing this kind of behavior, which is criminal? Right. You don't want it to get worse, so we got to try to nip it in the bud right then. So
I will say that I'm very much in favor of that. For me, on a personal level, I noticed something here in LaPorte County. We have limited resources when it comes to, I've referenced stuff like Scared Straight program, not necessarily that in and of itself, but we have a limited number of resources here in LaPorte County as far as the ability for officers and court officials to be able to step in and kind of guide or help youth that are straying off the path. I had a particularly robust, one of my children had some issues legally, just doing dumb stuff, being a kid. And in trying to find resources for them, I noticed that there was a distinct lack here in LaPorte County, because I was like, maybe put the cuffs on them, throw them in the back of a squad car, have a good conversation with them about, hey, this is what you're doing and this is where it's going to lead. But I was told, no, we can't do that.
Right.
Yeah. And I get it. There are rules, there are regulations, but do you think that there is any room to get something like that? The kids that aren't necessarily in the program yet, and I say program, they haven't been arrested yet, but they're doing dumb stuff. Do you think that there's any way we can do something like that?
Right. Well, I mean, it's my understanding is that the studies show that Scared Straight, for instance, is not successful necessarily anymore. Right. I don't know if it's because kids are exposed to so much nowadays that they aren't scared. Right. They almost become desensitized to certain things. Right. So I think studies have shown that it's services that work best up front, and then if things continue, it's almost a graduated sanctions that eventually, if it continues, that's kind of the method that shows more success. But eventually there might be some kids that no matter how many services you provide, the sanctions aren't changing them. And that's when you gotta just say, hey, at this point in time, action needs to be taken. Otherwise, others are going to be harmed, and you can't have that either. So yes, I think that I need to look at, with, again, Magistrate Stallworth, and say what programs are out there, what are we utilizing, what are we underutilizing? Maybe we should try to use some things more or less. Talk with the various agencies that are involved. What do they need to be more successful with their programs as well? What I don't know that they're not succeeding. Maybe there's just more juvenile issues happening, again, because of some desensitization that's going on, or whatever their backgrounds are going on, right? Their environment, things like that. So I am always looking for programs that are going to be successful. I mean, why wouldn't you? You know, I
Right.
mean,
Right.
again,
Absolutely.
money can always be an issue, but if there's grants
Mhm.
to be gotten, you got to look for them. You got to dig into them. My understanding is right now, the staff at Circuit Court, there's a couple of people on there. They do excellent grant writing. I
That was,
encourage
yeah.
that.
I
And
was actually going to ask that.
yes,
Yeah. If we
absolutely.
had a
And
grant
the thing
writer.
is, in my career, I've written grants as well. I've been awarded grants as prosecutor and things of that nature. So,
Okay.
you know, I can also put my 2 cents in and say, hey, what about this? Because I've
Right.
been there. I kind of know what some ideas of what might be successful in a grant.
Okay. Awesome. So as far as the court itself goes, um, oh, sorry, my cat is, I have cats, so
Oh,
sometimes they bother me when I'm
start
trying to
wandering
do
in.
stuff. Yeah. No, I have one that he's really angry when I close the door, and because if I let him in the room, then he'll be in the camera and you won't see me, you'll just see him. And as cute as he is, but
Oh,
he'll scratch at the door, and I couldn't
sure.
tell if it was him or if someone was coming in. Okay. I lost my train of thought, so
All
we're
right. You
we're
started
gonna
to
move on.
say it's Circuit Court, but I don't know where you're going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know what it was. Okay. So have you done? I know you were a prosecutor and you worked in the prosecutor's office. I actually have two questions as far as that goes.
Okay.
Did you do any defense work?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I
Okay.
did. So after, let me think when that came into play. So after the election didn't go turn out like I wanted in Stark County, and that's when my
Okay.
husband and I, like I said, he was already working up here. We moved back up to LaPorte. I opened my own civil practice then here in LaPorte, and at the same time to also help supplement my income, I was hired into the LaPorte County Public Defender's Office. So I did
Okay.
that for 3.5 years as well. So yeah, I was. Craig Bragy's the one that brought me on, and he basically made me, I'll call it a floater. He had me doing level 6 felonies, but then he said, but at any time I'm going to throw you in to doing major felonies. I said, that's fine. So yeah, I was assigned a couple murder cases and, so I had the whole gambit going on with
Okay.
that. So yes, I did that for 3.5 years too. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you've done both sides. That was my question actually. Is so, and I asked another individual the same thing. So currently, right now, you work in the LaPorte County Prosecutor's Office
Correct.
as
As a deputy prosecutor. Correct.
deputy prosecutor. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if elected, then you'll be the judge, and you'll have your former boss, or at least people from the office that will appear before you.
Sure.
Is that going to be an issue, or you're going to relish like slamming them? Or no,
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's a joke.
No, no, I won't. No, I pretty much treat people fairly across the board. No, the only thing that will have to be dealt with is the cases that have my name on them, which that's not unusual because I don't know if you remember when Judge Bergeson became judge. His cases, went from a deputy prosecutor to the bench, and
Right.
so his cases again had to be handled. Those came over to circuit court. And myself and Atlee Price, we were the deputies in the court when that happened. And
Oh,
so
okay.
we took those on along with the caseload that we had already had. And we just managed through it and got through those. So that's a possibility that my cases may then get shifted over to either Superior 1 or depending on what kinds of cases are going on, if they're ready for trial, it's possible I might just see if there's a senior judge that could come in and cover it from there and just keep it in circuit court. But another deputy obviously would have to be assigned to it, but I would be hands off from that at that point. But as
Okay.
far as dealing with my colleagues, no, I mean, I'm going to treat them fairly. I'm going to treat the defense fairly. I'm respectful to all of them for the most part all the time. So,
Right.
of course, they might get nervous thinking, oh my gosh, I'm handling a case that she used to kind of handle. Now what, or whatever the type of case anyway.
Right.
But, I might expect more from them than what they maybe that's going to make them more afraid. Maybe that'll make them better deputies. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's possible. Then, once you're elected, all the people that you worked with have to wonder, it's like, oh man, did she ever discover that I was the one who ate her turkey sandwich out of the fridge? Obviously I'm kidding. Yeah.
No.
Okay. So you said you like outdoors, and so do you, not that you have to give people your address because you shouldn't, but do you live in a rural area in LaPorte County, or
No,
do
I
you
live in
live
a
more?
subdivision.
Okay.
But I grew up on a farm. I was in 4-H for 9
Okay.
years. Did all of that. I helped on the farm. Um, my dad, basically, he had 2 jobs. My mom at one point had 2 jobs. I think that's part of where my work ethic has come from, is my parents. I give them credit for that, because that's kind of how I am. When I take on a job, I really take it on, and I devote my time to it. But no, I helped on the farm. Drove the tractor. I disked the field. I drove the wagons. So a lot of responsibility went on with that. So yeah, the first time I actually bought my first house was here in LaPorte, and it was in a neighborhood, not a subdivision, but in a neighborhood, and it was different for me because you'd step out your back door and there's your neighbors.
Right.
It just
Right.
was totally different because I didn't have neighbors growing up. It was fields, so that was different. So and then my husband and I, when we bought another house down in Stark County, we had 10 acres down there. Again, rural. And then
Yeah.
we came back up here, but I like the subdivision I'm in because it's kind of open, and you don't
Okay.
seem cramped in it or anything like that. So we're very comfortable where we're at.
Okay. I was just curious because so much of LaPorte County is kind of rural, other
Mhm.
than obviously, Michigan City and LaPorte proper. The rest of the county, and it's a big county,
Yeah.
there's a lot of farmers, a lot of rural stuff here. So I was just kind of curious with
Hmm.
your background and your love of the wilderness,
Yeah.
if that's kind of the way you
Yeah.
went. So
I think my yard has the most trees in it of all
fair.
everybody. I bought it like that, but that's one reason I was attracted to it. It's like, oh, it's got trees and things in it. So,
Right, you can kind of pretend that
yeah.
you're in the middle of the woods. So do you do, like, when you like you said, you enjoy the wilderness when you go on vacations, do you do any like national parks?
Oh, that's what we do.
Okay.
We do
Okay.
national parks, absolutely. Yeah, no, we've been to Yellowstone, Yosemite, Bryce Canyon, Zion's National Park, yeah, Everglades.
Wow.
We're trying to. That's actually, if I had a bucket list, that would probably be all of them, to see how many national parks we can get to. Focusing on more the ones here in the United States, of course, but
Well, yeah.
yeah, yeah, for
Have you
sure.
ever, just out of curiosity, and this is, feel free to be like, yeah, I'm not going to even, I'm
Yeah.
not even going to entertain that question. Did you ever see anything when you were at the national parks? Because there's so many people, I guess, that if you ever seen or heard of Missing 411, it was a documentary about all the people that go missing in the national parks.
No,
Fair
I
enough.
have
Like I
not
said, I was
seen
just
that.
curious.
No, I mean, I've read obviously in the papers when somebody goes missing or something
Mhm.
like that. And actually, when we went to the Grand Canyon a couple summers ago, unfortunately, there was a woman that went hiking down, and she ended up dying because she did not prepare for what it was going to take to come back up. And yeah, so that was very unfortunate. And that's while we were there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got
Wow.
to take it seriously out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
For
That's one thing I will say definitively. If you're going to go to a national park,
sure. Hmm.
make sure you do your research first and learn, the skill level, what you
Right.
need, and all of that.
Hmm.
I think that's probably the vast majority of the people, that have gone missing, were simply unprepared,
Right. Right. Hmm.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it happens. But how many? So now I'm curious. Like, how many have you been to, like, national parks?
I don't know. I haven't counted because
Oh, okay.
I started when when I was 6 years old. My parents took a 2-week trip. We drove from Indiana all the way out to California, and they were big at
Wow.
stopping at parks. And
Yeah.
so we were down in New Mexico, and we were in at the Four Corners, and so we've been all over. So I literally would have to sit down and go, okay, which ones have I actually been been to, other than
Right.
just with my husband. So there's been several for sure.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I love it all. So
Okay. Yeah. That's always something that like I really wanted to do. I was a truck driver for about 10 years, and I've been to all 48 states, but I haven't been. It's very difficult to get a semi into national park
right.
parking. They have some, by the way, that do have truck parking, but not all of them do. So, and in many cases, you're on a time crunch. You don't have time. I did go to Tombstone, Arizona, though.
Oh,
In the
right.
truck.
I've been there too. Yeah.
Have you?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. My brother at one point in time lived in Arizona. And after I had graduated from law school, before I
Mhm.
took the bar, he said, "Come out for a break." And I said, "Okay." So yeah, so he flew me out there, and he used to live in Prescott, Arizona,
Okay.
and so stayed there. But yeah, we traveled down to Tombstone, and um, it was fun because my nephews were very young then, and things. So they were a lot of fun.
Nice, nice. Yeah, we went down there. When I was a trainer for Werner Enterprises, we had my friend was a huge fan of like the Old West and
Uh huh.
all this stuff. He was actually my first trainee. So he was like, "Man, please, please, please." We had a load that was, kind of going the same general direction, and it wasn't too far out of route. And I'm like, "All right, fine." So we went there, and it was really interesting seeing all the historical buildings and the OK Corral and all of
Yep.
the old bar saloon that had the actual bullet holes in the wall from the gunfights that used to happen. But it was very, very tourist trappy
Yeah.
now.
All I
At
know
least
is
when we
it was
went.
very hot when we went.
Oh my
Because
god,
yeah,
yeah,
because it was summer and we were. I think it was like, I don't know, 105 degrees at least,
yeah.
but
It's
but it was
crazy
a
hot.
dry heat, as they
Yeah,
say.
it's a dry heat. Yeah, it's still hot, man.
It was. It
That's
was hard to sit on those bleachers to watch the show, the gunfight show.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's like it is definite. Like there's a noticeable difference between quote dry heat and humid heat from say Louisiana, but
Right.
it's still hot. It's still like ridiculously hot, and you're still drenched in sweat regardless.
Yeah. Hey, but I wasn't studying at that point, so it was all good.
So there you
I
go.
finally, yeah.
There you go. So what do you think that people should know about you before they go in to mark them out?
Well, again, it's kind of like a job interview, if you will.
Mhm.
You got to look at what is the background, what's the experience, what can they bring to the table. And I just think in 33 years, I've experienced a lot. Like I
Yeah.
said, I've not only done the prosecution and the public defense, I've done the civil work as well. Um, I've had a lot of, even behind that experience is experience, because whether it's working with the police or working with DCS or advocates and victims and families, and all of that exposure are things that have brought me learning, have taught me various things along the way. And, even as a prosecutor, there's things that I did that I had no idea it was necessary, but I saw a need. For instance, when I was in Stark County, they didn't have community corrections at that time. And
Okay.
so I thought, well, all our choices are probation, jail, or DOC, Department of Corrections. So
Yeah.
I thought, I knew that community corrections existed in other counties. Why don't we have one here? So I looked into it. I researched it. I learned what it was going to take to get one going. And then from there, I started talking with the individuals that would be involved with the board. And that involved judges, the sheriff. There's requirements of who needs to be on that board. So I approached each and every one of those individuals and said, how do you feel about this idea? And they all were on board with it. So I developed the ordinance that it would take to get one started. And then I once we got the board formed, then it's like, now we got to get the grant written, because
Mhm.
somehow we had to pay for it.
Right.
And so I wrote the grant to get it all started and to be accepted. And they have it. I mean, it started from that point, and they're still utilizing that. And even from that, working with the board, I was one of the individuals that interviewed the key positions for that. And, I've interviewed when I was prosecutor. So I think the fact that I have the supervisory skills as well. I had to deal with the budgets. I had to, manage the office, all with a full caseload. I wasn't just doing that. I had a full caseload as well. So I think along the way, my experience has allowed me to learn how to prioritize, organize, deal with people. I feel I have good people skills. I can approach somebody and say, hey, I'm unhappy with this, but I'm not screaming at them. I'm trying to be honest with them, and I'm trying to, let's get to the crux of the problem and let's see how we can deal with it. So I think, again, it's the whole package, if you will, that I think I can serve LaPorte County well. I can serve circuit court well, just based on all of my experience over 33 years.
Okay, awesome. And your website, again, for those who want to learn more about you,
is JulianneForJudge.com.
Okay, and it's spelled out FOR, right?
Correct, FOR.
Okay. Yeah, I want to make sure because
they do the number. I didn't think about that.
They do the numbers now, and that, like, me personally, that bothers me. But I'm very much it's a word. Use letters, but
yeah. And don't spell it like golf. FORE. Don't do that. It's
right.
FOR.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you golf? Because
I do. Well, it's been a while that I do golf, but it's been a long time. Yeah.
Because I don't know about LaPorte County, but in many, many locations, that's where, like, kind of the real stuff happens, is out on the golf course. That's where the real conversations happen.
Oh,
and, people meet each other. So I was just wondering if you golf. So
it's been a long time, but I figured at some point in time I'll be able to pick it back up again. I'm hoping.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you know what, that's actually, that reminds me, if elected, you should have an opportunity to golf. What are the hours of a circuit court judge? Is it like what you see? Basically, court starts at 8:30 or whatever and runs until 4:30 or whatever. But the judge isn't actually off of work when court's over, right?
Right. You can get calls in the middle of the night, and I've been on call before, and I know, again, as prosecutor, I told them, if there is a death, you will call me. If it's a suspicious death, I want to know about it. And so not only did I get a call, I would go out to the scene, and I would, evaluate with them. Why do we think this is a suspicious death? What's going on? And because eventually I figured, if it's going to be a crime, I'm going to be handling it. I want to be there. I want to see what you're collecting. So when I indicated I had some leadership skills, that's part of it. I would go out to scenes. I would help assist the police and say, hey, what about this? What about that? Let's get some search warrants going. Whatever it was going to take, I was involved with it, because, again, I needed to know from start to finish how good this case and how strong this case could be. I wanted to make sure things were done right. So now I forgot what your question was.
Judges aren't off.
Yes, we're not off.
Not off the clock.
So even as a prosecutor, I wasn't off. As a deputy prosecutor, I'm on call. I'm not off. So we're contacting the judges for search warrants and things. But I'm also the type of person that says, yes, the clock stops at 4 o'clock. Staff's gone home. But listen, I can take maybe a couple things home and read through them. I can sit on my couch and read through something. So then, if something comes up while I'm in the office, then at least I got something done, ahead of time. So I'm that type of person that if I can maybe crank something out quickly, because, hey, I'm just sitting quietly at home, I might as well read something. So sometimes I'll handle it like that. So no. Working beyond 4 o'clock is not something I'm really familiar with. I mean, I do that all the time. I work beyond 4 o'clock. So,
okay. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize exactly how much a judge is contacted for search warrants, for case stuff. Right. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and you have to be very familiar with the case that's in front of you. You have to read through all these documents and, rule. But beyond ruling, you gotta be well aware of these things. And isn't there a lot of stuff that happens that kind of, I don't want to say out of the public eye, but like there's stuff that happens in chambers and preliminary meetings that the judge has.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that goes on. So when you see a judge, just because, you know, court starts at this time and ends at this time, often they're working very late and on non-traditional times.
Right. Because there's paperwork that has to get completed. Now, mind you, having a great staff helps with that. And I think that there's good people up there working, and, you know, you can only sometimes be as good as what your staff is. So you got to have good people that are surrounding you to make sure everything flows well, gets done on time, and people are happy with it, because, you know, jurors can be coming in and, you know, they want to be treated respectfully. Half of them have never been in a courtroom before, ever. So you got to make it a good experience for them, so that they're not going, oh shoot, I got another call to go to jury duty. You know, hopefully the first time, if they have the good experience, they'll go, it was fine. You know, it's a duty that I'm proud to serve. I'm proud to do this. And, you know, they're not going to think too much about it if they have to come back another time. And a lot of times the staff will deal with that. But again, if I'm supposed to be the head of it, running the show, then you got to set that good example. You know, this is how I want people to be treated. Hopefully they will pick up on that and they will be doing the same thing. So things there's a lot of things going on, like you said, backstage that others don't see.
So are you, obviously, if elected as judge, would you be responsible for your staff? Like, do you have the authority to hire, fire everyone on your staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, I've had to do that as a prosecutor. But I always want to try to find out first, how well are they working? Is this the best position for them to be in? Maybe they'd be better serving over here doing this kind of job. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. I get along with everybody up there now, but I don't know the back scene and what's going on necessarily, because I'm not up there all the time. But an honest conversation is something that I would be able to have with them, because I have a good rapport with them right now.
Okay. That's awesome. So you're pretty familiar with everyone that works in the office as it is. Mm-hmm. So that's good. I think that's pretty much carries through for everyone. I'm not sure there's anyone running who doesn't know, I guess, the people there. So, okay. What is your goal? Like, yeah, you're running and you want to be elected to this position, but would you like to serve on like the Supreme Court or the Indiana Supreme Court or no? Okay.
I'll tell you right now, no. No, I am not looking to be a small fish in a big pond or anything like that. I'm just happy to serve where I'm at. You know, I'm 58 years old, so I'm not looking to be, you know, on the Supreme Court or appellate courts. I like jury trials. In terms of watching them and seeing them, and I'll call it the action that's going on. It's a lot of work, and I know what it takes to do a jury trial. So I will feel that for the attorneys. If you put a case together and you put it together well, it's a lot of work. And I've done that through my career. And so I would like to say I'm going to see it from the other side now, I guess, if you will, you know, kind of be on that other side and see how they're doing it and be able to rule fairly, know the rules of evidence. That's one thing I think my career, I don't know. I never kept track because I wasn't that type of person. But if I had to guesstimate the number of jury trials I've done, I'm guesstimating about 150 jury trials. So because of that, I think I've got a good skill in terms of evidence that can come in and what shouldn't come in, things like that. So anyway.
Okay. No, that's a really good answer. I was worried about not worried, but wondering, I guess is a better word, about everyone and their actual experience with jury trials, because even though the vast majority of cases get settled with plea agreements, I think jury trials are kind of the fundamental aspect of our legal system that unfortunately people, in my opinion, again, don't put enough faith in or enough stock in. Um, those people, if you're chosen for jury duty, like you definitely should show up and do your best to be a juror and be honest, be respectful of the judge, but it is like the most critical part of our justice system, in my opinion.
Right. It doesn't work without the
Right.
jurors. I mean,
Right.
that's what the whole setup is, a fair and impartial jury of your peers. So, you know, and you mentioned about, going to trial. I think part of it is that the kinds of cases that I've handled, a lot of people don't want to plead to those kinds of things. So that's why I think I've got so many jury trials under my belt, is because, those level 1 felony child molests, those are the tough, they're the tough ones.
Yeah.
That people are like, oh, I don't want to admit to that, but okay, here we go. And you gotta, I'm not going to back out. I believe what the evidence is, and now I got to present it to the jurors to see what they think and how they feel about it.
Right.
So,
Right. I got two more questions for you.
sure.
Because we're getting short on time. I know it goes quick, but the first one is, and because of the position you're running for, you may not be able to answer this. And if that's the case, I understand. Viewers may or may not, but you got to understand judges have very particular rules that they have to follow when they're running for office. And there are some questions that they simply can't answer. And now I forgot exactly. I forgot the exact phrasing of the question, but essentially, do you, so I'm trying to think of how to phrase it so that it doesn't become an issue, so that you can answer it and you don't have to go, yeah, no, we can't tackle that one. So with the predominance of cases being settled by plea agreements, is that like how much, trying to think of exactly how to word it. How much say does the judge, ultimately it's up to the judge. That's my question. Ultimately it's up to the judge as far as a plea agreement goes, to where they can go yes or no, correct? Am I right in that? Okay.
Right. They can accept or reject it. Correct.
Right. That's what I thought. Okay. So ultimately, regardless of what they come up with as far as a plea agreement goes, it's up to the judge to go, yeah, no, this is too little time, or this is unacceptable, or whatever. Right.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Last question for you. And I got this several times in several different formats. Is there a concern, because several people have asked about, like, again, trying to think of how to word it. Because I can't say it exactly the way that it's worded in the email. Okay. Let me see if I can read this without. Okay. So there have been several instances where you've been seen with or campaigning with individuals that the county has. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Again, I'm trying to think of how to word it to where it's not improper. Do you feel that there's any reason to be concerned, or should the people be concerned? That's a better way to word it. Should the people be concerned about fairness? Because that's something you've mentioned several times, fairness. Right. And it's something that I believe you have a good background to have the fairness, but several people have emailed me wanting me to ask, you've been seen with, campaigning with a particular individual that was charged, but then not prosecuted for crimes. Do you think that could potentially be an issue? Or much like, for example, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, take pictures with all kinds of people and hang, like when you go to functions, there are tons of people that you may take a photo with. It doesn't mean you endorse them.
Right. Okay. I've not been campaigning with anybody. I'll put it that way. I've not been campaigning with anybody. I'm not quite sure who they're referring to, but if somebody approaches me, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that.
Right.
I have no connection with anybody.
Okay.
I mean, I have no connection with anybody.
Right.
I'm not a political person. I'll
Okay.
be honest with you. I'm not a political person. I don't hang around with any certain person. If a person comes up to me and says hello, I'm going to say hello. If a person's going to say, hey, how'd this or that go? I'm not going to sit there and blow them off. I will say, well, here's how my day went or whatever. But I'm not endorsing anybody. I just don't have any connection with anybody. If I'm sitting at a table and somebody comes and sits at the table with me, I'm not going to kick them out.
Right. Okay.
I know the importance of judicial independence. I know that I can't be associating with certain branches of government. That's why it's judicial independence.
Yeah.
To maintain that integrity. I know that. So whether or not I don't know who they're referring to because I'm not associating with anybody necessarily. So I don't know.
I wanted to get your answer before I actually said who they're, concerned about.
Okay.
There are a number of people who have emailed me or texted me or whatever. I guess there were a couple of instances, but particularly, I think it was the parade. You were seen walking with Commissioner Grammarosa. And so they were worried that maybe you guys are really close. And there are concerns there from some people about her. And if maybe that, maybe you guys are really good friends. And then if that's the case, then, maybe that could change stuff, No,
I don't know her well. I know I've heard that she's got a pizza place or something in Michigan City. I've never been to
Franklin
it.
Square.
I'm sorry?
It's by Franklin Square.
Oh, okay. So I've never even been to it. I don't know anything much about it. I know that I didn't know she was actually walking with me in my parade. I know she asked for the T-shirt at some point, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
She's entitled to support whoever she wants, I suppose.
Absolutely.
But I don't know that. I know when I took the group photo with the folks that were walking with me in the parade, she wasn't there. So anyway, I didn't even know she was walking with us. So I was doing my thing. So I don't know. I was walking from side to side on the streets and having a good time. So
yeah, you were walking in the parade.
Right.
I get it. Those parades, they're either like really fun or they're really annoying, at least in my opinion, in my personal experience with the parades, because sometimes they'll go really well and the timing is good and you have an opportunity to talk to the people and hand out candy or whatever it is you're doing. And then other times it's like stop, start. And then you got to catch up and then you get left behind. And that was always me. I'd always get left behind because I become long-winded, but
yeah, well, I got my steps in that day for sure, even despite the wind and everything else. It was fun.
It's not a long route, but it's like the one in LaPorte was much, much longer. I know when my wife did it, it was really, really hot that year. And she came home and she's just drenched and her face is all red. And I was like, are you going to be okay? And she's like, I'm not sure. It was a lot.
Yeah, they can't, especially in the summer ones. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. It's a lot warmer walking on those asphalt streets than people think, just kind of standing on the sidelines.
Right.
So thank you very much for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
It was a good time. I'm glad we got to talk about national parks and everything. That's
right. Fun. Yeah, I'm so excited about national parks. I really, really love them. I kind of wish me personally, I wish they hadn't given the dunes to the national parks.
Oh,
Although national parks are, they're awesome and they're great, but I think we should have, that should be ours. But that's just my opinion. Nobody cares what I think. So
well, I appreciate you inviting me to be on your podcast. It was enjoyable.
absolutely. And if you want to learn more about Julianne Havens, it's julianne4judge.com, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And do you have any social media accounts?
It
really.
might be associated with the Facebook. I'm not really good on that.
Okay, I was just wondering if you had like a campaign Facebook or anything.
Put my name out there as far as Facebook. I think that's, you'll get there.
Okay, awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. And I really enjoyed the time. It went quickly.
All right. All right. You take care.
You too. Thank you so much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was Julianne Havens. And I mean, she's kind of awesome. I certainly would not be angry if she won. Now tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow. Let me double check here. Let's see here. Today's Thursday. So tomorrow we're going to have Kurt Ernst on. He, along with Chuck Watterson, I believe that's all three. I think that's the entirety of the Republican ballot for Circuit Court Judge. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is the 4th of April. You have 4 days, technically less because of the weekend. You have 4 days to register for primary voting. I cannot stress the importance of this enough. Get out there, register. You can do it online, indianavoters.com. It takes just a minute. Yeah, you need your driver's license number and a little bit of quality information that, to prove you're you. You got to prove you're you. But other than that, it's a super easy process, and you can slide in there and be able to vote. Early voting actually starts the very next day, which is April 9th. And we have early voting for a whole month. There's no excuse. And in many cases, primary voting here in Indiana determines the winner. And it is arguably more important than the general election voting. So I hope that each and every one of you that watch my show is registered to vote. And if you aren't, I hope you'll get registered. So I appreciate your time. As always, again, tomorrow, Kurt Ernst. Tuesday, the 9th, we have Joe Haney. Commissioner Joe Haney is going to be on the show. We have Al Stevens coming up. He's the Republican Party of LaPorte County. He's the chair, and a few others, which I've got written down and I don't have in front of me because I didn't think I need it. So that's the way it works here. We just kind of fly by the seat of our pants, and that's it. As always, thank you very much for joining me. God bless you. God bless Indiana, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.